Welcome to the CAD Office Training Guide series for F.Connect. I'm John Mark Palacios, CAD Applications Engineer. Today I'll be going through the F.Connect Roadway Design 3D Modeling Guide. In this course, we will learn the Bentley Open Roads Designer Connect Edition tools for design and 3D modeling within the F.Connect workspace. In this series of videos, I will take you step by step through each exercise from the guide. In this session, we're going over the second part of Chapter 4 of the guide on detail modeling. Here's the topics we're going to cover. First, we're going to do parametric constraints, and we already did some before, but we're going to set it up this time for a switch. And then we're going to create surfaces, make some edits to the surfaces, clip those surfaces, put surface templates on those surfaces, all those to build the intersection surface. We're going to do a 3D civil cell, clean up and finish the traffic separator, the nose of the traffic separator. We're going to do linear templates as well, and this is going to be for the right turn island. All right, so let's dig into the exercises. Okay. Go. All right, so we're going to start with exercise 4.5, and we need a switch at this point, set up the parametric constraints that are going to be on the US 98 corridor. So we need to get rid of these pieces that we just built off these surfaces off of. So first of all, hopefully all the rules were removed as part of the process. So we're going to just go to File, Open, and we're going to go look for the MODL RD US 98 TGN file. And then we're going to the Corridors tab right here, the ribbon. We're going to the Edits drop down right here in the middle of the Edit section. And we're going to choose Create Parametric Constraint right here, right in the middle of that section. We select the corridor, and it wants us to lock to start station. Now, we put this key station in before, but the one caveat that I will say is that I don't want this, what tends to happen is if you stop it at the right at the exact station as a key station, it doesn't build that last template. So let's just go, if we go just beyond it, we can ensure that it builds it. So if you try to snap to this radius return, it's going to be 31 plus 41.91. So I'm just going to add 100 to that. So instead of 31 plus 41.91, it's going to be plus 41.92. Just typing that in manually. And accept that. And the same thing on the end, except now we're going to subtract 100th. So if I try to snap, it's going to be 33 plus 91.91. So I'm going to change it to 33 plus 91.90. And then accept that value. And the constraint label, got to pick that from the list here. And that needs to be LT underscore switch. So I'm going to accept that. Now the start and stop value, so the switch in the template library is set up so when you set it to 1, it toggles it on and off. So I'm just going to change that to 1. For both start and stop, and accept that. Now watch what happens over here in the 3D view as it reprocesses. So that whole section goes away. Before I go to the next part of the exercise, let me just demonstrate to you what that looks like in template. So if I open up the create template, you don't have to follow along on this part, just a reference for you. If I go into the quarter templates and look at this template, here's my switch. It's this component here, just a normal component. And this is set 1.5 feet away from the other side. So when this value changes to 1, change that to 1, and click apply, you can see that whole side goes away. So that's what's happening here, is we're overriding this with this label here on the parametric constraint, this horizontal distance, and this has a display rule that ties it to this. So that's all that's doing. I'm just going to close this without saving it. And the next part of exercise 4.5, we're just going to turn off the automatic quarter processing. This is just to make sure that to help make sure that we don't accidentally break anything. So if I click the quarter handle and get the little pop-up menu, hover over it again, look for the little lock icon, and it says lock deactivate rule, and just select that. Now if you hover over it, it shows unlock. So that means the rule has been deactivated. If I make changes to anything here, it's not going to automatically reprocess. Even sometimes opening the file will automatically reprocess. This will just help make sure that anything that's tied to this isn't going to break simply by opening the file, automatically doing things. For example, if I need to change what I was showing earlier about if I need to update the OpenRoad standards from the libraries, if I do that, with this automatic quarter processing off, it's not going to automatically make any changes to that just simply by doing that. So that gives me the chance to update the standards and then go back and make the changes again to turn that create template geometry back on before anything gets automatically updated. All right, so we're done with this file. Just those quick steps. So we can go back to the detail model file in the next exercise for 4.6. So just go File Open, switch back to MODL RD Detail 61. So now we're going to apply the point control. So we have everything set up here. We have our 2D and 3D geometry for this. Just to clean this up a little bit, I'm going to turn off the DSGen RD reference. I'll come over here to the level display and expand out the mainline 61. Turn off the display altogether, DSGen RD01. We'll turn alignment back on. It doesn't save the settings because I have the nested references on that. So now it's easier. It's going to be easier to select these lines here to make these edits. So now I come over to the corridors tab. Just go to the edits drop down where we were before, but I'm going to make sure you click the drop down because you're using a different command now. We're using create point control, the last one, the list. And the corridor we're going to select first is the SR61R. So select that corridor handle. And the start station, we can just lock it to the start, or you can snap it right here, but this is the same place that we started it. So I'm just going to click Alt to lock to start, or just check this box. Accept that, and the end station needs to be the end of this radius. So this is where that previous point control ended. So I'm going to snap it there. The control description for this, I'm going to put US 98. The other point control on here is just called the UP. This one at least lets us know that it's at the intersection area. And the point, again, we have to do this in the 3D view. Remember, don't click it from the menu. Just zoom in on the 3D view and select this RT PVT EUP out on the curb. It's our edge of pavement. change the mode to both. And the control type needs to be linear geometry. So before we use the corridor feature, this time we're going to do linear geometry. We don't have a corridor to tie it to. We're just tying it to this geometry right here. I'm going to accept that. I'm going to accept the linear geometry and ask me to locate a plan or profile element. So I'm going to just select this plan element here, the fillet that we created. And it says accept active profile UPA 5. So I set the active profile. This is the one that's showing. That's the one I want to use. So I'm just going to accept. And this is important here as well. Check this box, use a secondary alignment. So what this is going to do, this is going to solve the whole problem as this radius becomes perpendicular. Or, yeah, actually, it's turning, so it's becoming perpendicular to the center line that we're following. So this corridor was built following this center line. Okay, and then we're point controlling it over. So if I just point control it without using a secondary alignment, it would just shift this over, and by the time you get over here, dimensions are all going to be wrong. So by saying use a secondary alignment, it's going to come to this. It's going to come to this radius, and then it's going to change the interval. Instead of going this direction, perpendicular to the center line, it's going to now be perpendicular to this radius. So that's the secondary alignment part. So when you have things like this that are turning, sidewalk, anything that's changing direction, you often want to use that option. So I'm going to set that to yes. I'm just going to set that priority to 10, just as a good habit to get into. And the offsets are all going to be 0. So I'm going to accept all of those, and then watch what happens in the 3D as it applies this. So there we go. And for some reason, it lost the previous point control. That's just going to have to re-add that. That just happens, I think, it's because I was messing with files and changing references, and it got lost in the mix. It said, oh, hey, this didn't exist anymore. So I'm just going to add another point control for that. Add it back. So start station, snap to there. I'm going to lock it to the end. It's going to be EOP. It's going to be this edge pavement, both, corridor feature. The corridor I want to tie to is the main line. I may have turned the handles off for that. I'm going to turn the levels back on before I can do that. So I'm just going to do all on so I get this handles back. There we go. I select the handle, locate a reference feature. That's this edge of pavement. Accept everything else. Okay. Now that's back to where it should be. So that means this side is pretty much complete. Now there's a little bit of a glitch here. We just need to change that station, I think, a little bit. It's not... looks like on the end it maybe didn't snap to the right point or something. Or maybe that profile doesn't go all the way. It could be a couple different issues there. So the easy solution to that is going to be to change the handle. There should be... yeah, so I should have this point control right here. This is locked to the start, but it should be locked to the start of the corridor. So I'm gonna edit it since I have quarter objects open. Go ahead and open quarter objects if you don't have it open. And we're gonna change this US 98 start station. I'm just gonna select that. I'm gonna do make graphical edit. So make sure you select it here so I can actually use the graphical edit. And instead of locking to start, first I'm gonna just try snapping it to the end here. Just make sure I'm snapping to the correct point. Okay, so that changed a little bit, but it's still a little bit glitchy right at the end. So I'm gonna just change that start station, move it up by 100th to 40.01. Okay, so that made it worse. Right, the other direction by 100th. It's back to square one. So what I really need to do is change the start station of the template drop. Let me just check what that is. So it's 700 plus 40. Gonna do make graphical edit, and I'm gonna lock it to the start again. So hit Alt or check this box, and then accept. So to change the template drop, all I should need to do is just grab the handle on the template drop here. So if I select the template drop boundary, I have this little handle right here. So I'm going to grab that and I can visually move it over. Of course, this is snapped to this location. So the better solution might be to just manually type it in. So since I have quarter objects open, I can just come over here and change the 40.01 or 40.00 to 40.01. And there we go. So there's a little bit of a gap here in this end. We could just change the switch if you wanted to clean that up. I'm not going to worry about it right now. It's just pretty much necessary because of the glitch on the end there. Wow, where'd my point control go away for? Oh, that's not good. It's enabled. I'm just going to try reprocessing the corridor here. Well, this is if I disable this and re-enable it, still not picking it up. It's odd. Try changing the priority to 1, but I don't think that'll make a difference. Oh, it did. So it shouldn't be overlapping between these two. But this is where that priority to 10 comes in handy, so I just need to change it one place to make this higher priority. Change it in either place. So for some reason it thinks they're overlapping, so the priority conflict. It shouldn't be, but if in doubt, we can do it this way. So this one would take precedence, and wherever this one doesn't apply, this 10 now is the lowest priority, so that takes precedence. So that's something that does come into play when when you have the same, when you're working on the same point. So that best bet maybe just be to set the priorities different for those two. Make sure the mainline one is a higher priority. So that's working okay. Looks about right. Now let's do the same thing for the left side. So I'm going to go over here to the edits drop down. I think I need level display anymore here. Create point control. I'm going to select this SR61L corridor. I'll go ahead and leave it locked to start, but I don't want to lock to the end. I need a lock to this point right here, or snap to this point right here, 701 plus 34. Control description is going to be US98, just like we did for the other one. The point I got to select in the 3D view was edge of pavement, LTPVT EOP out. The mode is both. Control type needs to be linear geometry. I'm going to accept that, and it'll ask me to locate planar profile element. So then select this fillet here that we created. Accept the active profile. Check the box to use as a secondary alignment. And to avoid future problems, I'm going to set this priority to 20, so it's lower than the other one. And all the offsets should be 0. So there we go. I moved it over. This one looks pretty good. We don't have any glitches on the end. If you do, that's probably we have to just edit the station here. I think it deleted the point control like the other one. Just had the same issue. So I'll have to re-add the mainline point control real quick. So at least it kept the super elevation point control. I'm going to add new. Uncheck the lock to start and snap it to this station here, 71 plus 34. Hit Alt, let's lock it to the end. Control description is going to be EOP. The point, we're going to have to select here in the 3D view. LTPVT EOP out. Mode is both. Control type is corridor feature. And then the corridor we're going to select is going to be the mainline corridor. So we grab it, that corridor handle right here. And then the reference feature is going to be this edge of pavement here. Make sure you get the top one, the LTPVT EOP out. Priority for this, that should be 10. And then the offsets should all be 0. All right, so that's back in place and looking like it's supposed to. If you want to check, you're welcome to check the cross section to make sure the super elevation is looking correct, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Main thing is you should have wrapped around the radius now, and if you didn't redo or make any like replacements of files, you shouldn't have had to replace the corridor like I did. But it's not the end of the world if it happened. That's how you would need to resolve it. All right, so I can close this corridor objects. I'm done with that. I'm going to save my settings here. All right, so we need to create the terrain now. We have all the elements that we need to do that. Let me just make sure I can select the boundaries okay. So I'm going to turn these quarter handles from the main line back off, so I can, and also the quarter handle probably for the US 98. Let me see. Now I can see that one okay. Actually, I think the US 98 display is turned off right now in the 2D view. So let me just get that ready. I need to be able to, I just need to be able to select this line. So actually I don't need that display, but I could turn off the model display too. So I'll go just do that real quick. So I'll go to attach here and uncheck the mainline 61. I'm going to do it in the 3D too, so you can see this line that I built, so you can see that it's there. Go ahead and uncheck the US 98 in 3D. So you can see all the lines that we built. They're right there. So these are what we're going to use to build the surface. All right, so exercise 4.7, we're going to go to the terrain tab. We're going to go to the create section and choose from elements, create terrain model from elements. Now the feature type here changes from break line to boundary. We'll leave the edge method on none for now. Hopefully that'll work okay. So then I'm just going to select all these elements. So I need to fill it. I need this line here. This one here, it just says locate next element, reset when done. So they're all complex elements, so it doesn't take very long. It's just like 4 elements. And then reset. Now before I reset, I'm just going to set this feature definition. So this one we're going to actually clip to get rid of the to cut out for the right turn island. So I'm going to call this feature definition. I'm going to go terrain, and I'm going to call it DTM clipping, because it's kind of like a temporary one. So this gives me the option to turn it off since it's going to be a different one than the proposed. And then I reset when done here. Accept all those options. And it probably isn't going to show anything because I have constructions turned off. So I'm going to go to my 3D view, go to view attributes and turn on constructions. Or click F7 if you prefer the shortcuts. So there it is. Once constructions are turned on, you should see this blue terrain model. You can verify that the triangles aren't doing anything weird if you want. And good way to check that, because I can't really tell. The triangles could be jumping across here for all I know. So a good way to check that would be to turn off the meshes. So just come over here to OpenRoad Standards, expand out the detail model file, expand out feature definitions, and just uncheck the box for mesh. So that'll turn off all the meshes and just leave the lines. Now I can see underneath them and check, it's okay, you know, it closed up nicely. There's no stray triangles or anything. So that's good news. So I'm going to check the box on mesh to turn it back on. All right, so the one thing that this could use, though, is a break line. So when you think about how the intersection is designed, now might be a good time. Let me bring up a cross-section here to illustrate this. I'm going to view control. I'm going to do 4 views. I'm going to do the plan, profile, cross-section in 3D. Ask me to create a dynamic profile view. I'm just going to pick this. Just pick one of these lines and select over here in view 5. And then I move my cursor back to the view 1, and it says select OK to create a dynamic cross-section view. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to select this SR61L corridor. This is the longest one, so this will show me the most. And then click over here in view 7. There's my cross-section view. And I can see the terrain model that was created in there. So this is somewhat useful. Let me just go up to a little bit farther so I can actually see the whole sidewalk here. So notice what's happening here. You got a lot of breaks going on, and usually you want a little bit of finer control over that. So we want to be able to have a little bit of a smoother roadway here. So what I'm going to do is just do a break line across here, just to make sure that this is breaking in a consistent fashion. And this should probably follow like the center line here from the traffic separator nose out. So let me turn back on I'm going to turn back on the reference file views here. I'm just going to go into my level display and do it from here. So I can right click and choose display on the main line. Right click and choose display on the detail. Now I decided to show everything in the main line, all the nested. So let me expand that out. We don't need super elevation. We don't need the 3D. And you got to, of course, make sure your view one's active for doing this. I don't need the 3D. I don't need the own 3D view. I don't want to see the terrain model over here. So I'm going to turn that display off. And so I got my traffic separator node, so I can snap to that. And basically I can come across. I've got my alignment, so I can, if I want to make sure it's parallel to that, I can. So that's great. So I'm going to close out level display. Well, actually, I should probably turn these back on before I close that out for the 3D view as well. So I'm going to check display for that and display for the main line 61. And because constructions are turned on, you see all these end conditions here. So it just gets a little bit messier having those on. And we don't need the survey. We don't need the super elevation 3D view. Let's turn that off. And save settings, since I made a whole bunch of display changes right now. All right, so I'm going to just use the same tools like we did before. Go to geometry, use these horizontal tools. First, I'm going to build a line. So let's call this one pavement crown for feature definition. So I'm going to set that first here. Linear roadway design, plan profile, 2D lines, pavement crown. Check this or select this button to use as active feature definition. And then I'm just going to do a line here. This is a line between points. Doesn't really need to be complex. It's just a simple feature. And so this is higher. Over here, the break is here. You can kind of see it if you zoom in the 3D. If you look at it in cross sections, you'll be able to see it as well. So I'm going to start at this point and just go straight across till it intersects with the US 98 corridor. So I'm going to snap right there at the start point. And really I want to snap to this milling line right here. So I'm going to just see if it'll let me do a perpendicular snap. There we go. And then I'm going to open a profile model for this. Bring that up. There's my existing ground. Do a nice little jog there. So just for reference here, I might actually project the centerline profile over to it just to see what that's doing. Knowing this should be 2% over, I could project it at 2%, and that would actually, be following it. So if I go over here to profile creation, see the option I want is buried under project. Yeah, here we go. So under element profiles, it's going to be the profile by slope from element. So this one option here, to go under the vertical section, element profiles, click the drop down and select profile by slope from element. So ask says locate planned element to profile. Let me bring up that command again. I don't know why it's not letting me. Doesn't act like it wants to let me select anything. All right, I'm gonna have to close out of already. It's acting up. Okay, so we're getting ready to go into the project this slope over. So I'm gonna go to the element profiles, click the drop down on that, and then we're in a geometry in the vertical section. And I choose profile by slope from element. First element to profile, that's going to be this line that we just created. And then I'm going to reset to complete. The reference element is going to be the center line, CLSR61. And set the slope, and you may need to type this in. So I set it to positive 2%. And the point selection, I'm just going to leave that at all. Profile adjustment, we'll just leave it at none. Make sure the feature definition is set to use active feature. If you still have pavement crown set up here, then you can make sure to use active feature definition is selected here next to it. And the vertical offset should be 0. So it adds a profile in here. So if I make that active, it may have already done it automatically, but if you make it active, you can verify that it is in the right place. So right here, it should be right at matching that point. And I can rotate it, and it's probably going to be matching it. Hopefully, it's going to be matching it over here as well. Let me turn off constructions in the 3D view, just so we can see it without seeing that template. So it doesn't match it here. So we don't want to use that 2%. We just need to make some modifications to it. So it needs to come down to match exactly on that edge. At least it looks like it doesn't match exactly. If I rotate a little bit, I'll probably see it floating in the air. Yeah. So that 2% up, that's where the transition is happening. So this is not at 2% over. So we got a transition. So this is a good starting point. And I could have brought this in by just doing a profile intersection point, but I just wanted to show you how that other command worked. So let me turn on constructions again in case I need to select that. All right, so now I need to go back over to vertical profile creation, the drop down profile intersection point. The element to show intersection, that's going to be this line I just created. The element which intersects is going to be this. Wait, that's the problem, isn't it? This is going to be. We're gonna use the one that we created earlier, the pavement slope break. That's the only one that has a profile there. That should be fine. That's what that surface is. So you can see it comes in a little bit lower right here. So basically we need to draw a profile from here to here. And if you need to do it complex transition, you can, but I think a simple line should be sufficient on this one. So I'm just going to go to vertical and choose lines, profile line between points. Select my profile view, and I'm going to start right here. I'm going to snap it to that line here. And again, if you use the profile intersection point and you just brought in this pavement asphalt PM, you'd be able to snap to that. So you could use that one. And then the stop point, I'm going to snap to this profile intersection point that I created. Snap there. And then I'm going to make that the active profile. Set as active profile when you bring up the little pop-up menu. And now you can kind of see how this is dashing it. This is because it's on the same, it's pretty much following the template for the most part. So we need to add that as a break line here. So I'm going to go over here back to the terrain tab. And I'm going to choose under feature management. Click the little drop down there and select add features. First option there. It wants me to locate the terrain model, so I'm just going to select one of the triangles in the 3D view. And then it wants me to locate the element to add. That's going to be this one here. So make sure in this view that the feature type is break line. So that's what this is. This isn't going to be a boundary. This is just a break line in the middle of it here. So the other one we added when we created it, we added them all as boundaries. So I'm just going to select this pavement crown line and then reset. You can add more than one line at once if you want. I'm going to accept that break line. And notice the triangles changed in this area. And you may actually need more break lines here because, again, this surface is doing weird things, and typically you don't want to create a low point like this right here. You want this to go across. And some of that might simply be a matter of dropping the profile down that we created on the radius, because maybe it's too high. Because if you look at it from here to the center line, hey, we just created a drainage problem. So that boils down to that's design. It's always an iterative process. I'm not going to fix that. That's going to take too long. But if you take a look at the complete data set, that iterative process has been done, and this is a little bit cleaner. This drops down and should work right for drainage purposes. My point here isn't to give you a 100% correct design. It's to show you the tools that you need to create your own correct design. The other thing that you can do, so notice how this only has one triangle going across there. If I change the stroking definition on this line, so I'm going to bring it up. And if you don't already bring up the properties dialog, you can always click right here on the left side, properties, when you have it selected. I'm going to come down here to the linear stroking. This is set to 32 feet. Well, that's much too large. For an intersection, I'm going to set that to 5 feet. And it added a whole bunch more triangles here now. So now this line becomes, so it's basically every 5 foot it's going to put a triangle. And you can control that with linear stroking. And that's going to affect other things. It's going to affect linear templates as well. And you may also do these for the other lines. It might also be useful. Maybe that's why I have this large break. Maybe if I had a tighter stroking definition on this line here, maybe that would work better. So I could select pavement break. I could go to linear stroking and change that to 5 feet too. So it added a bunch more triangles in here. And it's certainly going to smooth things out a bit. It still has that dip, but it doesn't have quite as many jumps in there. It's a lot smoother. And because this is a curve, it already has a much tighter stroking definition because it's using, I think, the curve one instead of the linear one. So that one looks pretty good. If you wanted to have it tighter over here on this line, you could also change the stroking definition there. So that's something that is worth playing with. So I'm just going to change that to 5 as well. So notice that it made a lot of triangles across here that we didn't have before. So it was just kind of one large triangle. Now it's a bunch of smaller ones. So it's just gonna kind of massage that surface, get it like you want it. And it may help with cleaning up some of the jagged issues. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a little bit. It's just because there's a bunch of small triangles in here. And I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's, you can tighten up the linear stroking as much as you want, but tighter you go, it's more triangles and more complexity. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to clip, or the next thing we need to do, exercise 4.8, we need to clip the terrain so we can put this right turn island in. So we have it in the design. We have these edges of pavement here. So let's just create a selection set of all of those. So I'm going to just select them one by one. You can use a plus to add them to the selection set here. And for this one, I'm just going to use the copy tool to copy them into this file. So I'm going to drawing, and just copy. Make sure it goes to the same place. I don't need to copy it. Let me try that again. Copy and snap it there. All right, so if I turn off the display of my design file, I can verify that it came in. There it is. And it may have actually copied twice. I better make sure I don't have it in there twice. If I just try to delete one of those, yep, I got it in there twice, so it did copy the first time. I'm just going to go delete the duplicates. And if I draw a box around one of these, I can see, make sure I'll just have one. Yep. So I think I cleared up the duplicates. All right, so this needs to be complex together so we can build a linear template off of it. So we're gonna make it turn it back into civil geometry. So when we copied it, it turns it back in. See, it's just a complex chain. It's not civil geometry. It doesn't have any intelligence. Because this is kind of complex the way it was built, rather than trying to recreate it like we did with these fillets, it's easier just to copy it. And we'll make it civil geometry again. Let's see, so I can go back here to geometry, and I go to horizontal. I go to complex geometry, and I do complex by element, this first option here. And we're going to change this feature definition to pavement asphalt UPA. This is an edge of pavement. I'm going to change this to automatic and see if it picks everything up. Make sure it's setting to use active feature. And it shouldn't really matter which one you select first. So I'm just going to pick this one here. It says fork, select path. So the automatic, sometimes it, you know what, I probably have a duplicate there. Let me just check that real quick. There's no reason it should be forking. No, I don't have a duplicate. One, two, three, four, five, six. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's only 6 elements. Okay. So complex geometry, I'm just going to click the tool, run it again. So manual may be better. Automatic, just sometimes it forks a lot. Notice how when you select it, it does change the arrow depending on which end of the element you select. So I'm trying to go around it this way. It probably doesn't matter, but I'm just going to kind of encourage it when it says fork, select path, make sure it's the right one, accepts complex. So that sorted it out, and the shape looks right, so I'm going to accept. And now if I hover over it, it's a complex element. It's pavement asphalt UPA. So that's good. That's what we want. Let's, so the next option here, step 4, exercise 4.8. Actually, step 3. First, we got to open a profile model here. So let me just grab that, do open profile model from the little pop-up. And then step 4, we're going to do quick profile from surface. So we have a surface here. All we really need to do is follow that surface. Now, again, for a drainage thing, maybe you want to actually build it up so you can force it to kind of go higher in this location rather than having this dip. But for a starting point, we're going to build it from the surface. So we'll just clip it right there on the surface. So if I go to the profile creation section here, on vertical, so I click the drop down, and I'm going to do quick profile from surface, the second option in that menu. So it asks me to locate a reference element. I believe that's the surface. Oh, that's not valid. Okay, that's my complex element. And then it asks me to locate the reference surface. So now I can come over into 3D view and select one of the triangles. Use active feature, pavement asphalt UPA, that's fine. I select that. So it says locate reference surface or reset to end. So I already selected it, so I'm going to reset. And it created this profile here. Now I didn't actually use my feature definition. It pulled it from the surface. So it's just really dark blue, hard to see. But it is there. And now it's not active. So let me just set a feature definition. I don't want to use that feature definition. It's not really a good one for a profile. So I'm going to say use active and data point here. Let me try that again. Make sure select it. Make sure it's unselected here. So make sure I'm getting the profile view. So set feature definition from the geometry standards drop down. And then locate elements. I'm just going to select in the profile view and reset. Okay. It's just pulling it because it's ruled. It's not letting me change that, or it's not actually changing the display, I guess. But it does have the feature definition. So I'm just going to select it and make it set as active profile. And now I can see that profile outlined right on the top of my surface. You know, so if you need to change the profile for any reason, you can also modify that. But we're going to leave it alone. You know, there's an option in the optional steps in there. You can do a best fit profile, but that should be sufficient for clipping. So we're going to leave it at that. We're going to clip the terrain. So we'll go down to that section of the exercise 4.8. So it's on page 4-21. So now we go back to the terrain tab. And we're going to go to the additional methods right here. Click the drop down on that. And we're going to do create clip terrain model. So about in the middle here, fourth one down. It asked me to locate a reference terrain model element. So I'm going to select one of the triangles over here. And it asked me to locate the clipping element. So this is going to be the complex element that we created. You can select this in the 2D. The right turn island. Locate next clipping element, reset when done. So I'm going to reset. So I'm going to give this a feature definition here before I run through all of these. It doesn't always ask me for the feature definition. And this one's going to be terrain, and this one is going to be DTM proposed. So this is, before we use DTM clipping, that's kind of the temporary one. So we have the option to turn it off and just have the final one that's clipped under DTM proposed. All right, so then we have horizontal offset should be 0, accept that. Vertical offset should be 0. Clipping method should be internal, accept that. And then it ran it. So you can see a bunch of triangles here. There's actually two surfaces stacked on top of each other. So this one here is my DTM clip. This one here is my DTM PR. So just did the default name. So now if I want to toggle one off, because that new feature definition that we've added, this was added in the latest release of F.Connect. I think it was in 10.08.02, whatever version I'm running here. Yeah, 10.08.02, January 2021 release. So if I go to standards, into detail, expand that out, expand out feature definitions, expand out terrain. So I see I have DTM clipping and DTM proposed. So I can just toggle off DTM clipping, and it will, if I give it a second, it should not display that. I may need to update the view. Well, assuming everything's set on the right feature definition, it may not be set correctly. But that's theoretically the way it's supposed to work. So if I look under the terrain models here, it's DTM PR, DTM clip is a reference of that. So it's in there. All right, so I'm not going to worry too much about whether you can turn it on or off or not. All right, so it's clipped, it's there. You can tell by the triangles which one you're working with. So now we need to create a surface template. So this is only construction element. This terrain is basically our top surface. If I turn that off, it has no depth to it. And you can see in the 3D view, the cross-section view here, there's not actually any depth here. So if I want to have pavement across here, I got to do a surface template. All right, so exercise 4.9. We're going to go to the model. Pardon me. We're going to go to the model detailing section and model detailing tab. And we're going to go to apply surface template. This button right here, second one under 3D tools. All right, so we're going to do exercise 4.9 to create an intersection pavement surface template. So this has no depth to it. This is the terrain model, so basically it's the top that we're creating. And if you look in the cross-section view, there's no pavement under this. It's just the surface, nothing else. So if you want it to look like this component, you have to apply a surface template to that. So to do that, we're going to come over here under model detailing, this tab of the ribbon. And I'm going to select right underneath it, apply surface template. It asks me to locate a terrain model. So I'm going to select, this is important where you get the clipped one so it doesn't try to put a surface template across the right turn island. So I'm just going to select one of these little triangles here that I know is part of the clipped terrain. And it wants me to do an external clip boundary. I'm going to say no for that. and then ask me to select a template. I can use the Alt down key if you want to use your keyboard. I'm going to click the three dots here in the dialog. Good to verify that you have the right ITL file loaded up here. At the top, that looks right. I'm going to go to Surface Templates, and I'm going to pick Pavement Asphalt. So the new one, by the way, on the Pavement Asphalt, this is something new with ORD. Since we started in quantities, since we're quantifying the pavement through this, we need the pavement design reflected. So we need the friction course, the structural course, has to be separate components, and they're separate feature definitions. In fact, that's why we have these friction course, structural course, if you need to build your own. So this one is set up that way. Well, if you're using one of the older ones, you want to make sure it has the correct. So in this ITL file, it should be set up correctly. But if you're doing a project that's been around since ORD was first started, you may not have it set up correctly, so you might need to change your templates. So Pavement Asphalt, we're just going to pick that one. And I'm going to select OK. And so this option here on feature definition, let's go ahead and change that to enable linear features. So there's really two options, enable or disable. So because we're going to build break lines from this, we want to enable it. So we need to be able to create a bottom surface. So we have profiles for the top, and those should come through when we do the break lines. And that's fine, but we don't have profiles on the bottom, so not only are you going to get those if you set this option to enable linear features. So just think about, is it something you're going to be able to reflect, to build like a subgrade surface off of it? If so, you're going to want to enable linear features. So we build that, and that's in the next chapter when we create the 3D deliverable files. We're going to build that from break lines. So this is going to make sure that these show up. These break lines show up to be able to build the templates that we need. And it's going to be on the feature definition coming from the surface template, however it's set in there. So enable linear features for this one. And then accept, data point to accept the selection. And it's going to put, now it's asphalt in here. And it's overlapping this blue construction. So if I just turn constructions off now I can get rid of that altogether. Now I can see my hole for the right turn island. Looks beautiful, cut out perfectly. And I can see the pavement across there. If I update my cross-section view, I can see the pavement in there. Still got that dip there, but the pavement's there. So like I said, this profile really needs to drop down lower to be a better design. All right, so that is it for that exercise 4.9. So that's ready. Let's go ahead and do the civil cells for the traffic separator noses here. So we're going to come over here. We're still in the model detailing tab. We're going to come over here to place civil cell under civil cells. Select place civil cell. It asks you to select a civil cell. So I'm just going to do the little three dots here on the dialog to bring up the pick civil cell dialog. Now it's loading these from multiple DGN libs, so it usually takes a second the first time you load it. Or more than a second, as the case seems to be here. All right, so pick civil cell opens up, and we're going to go to the f.3D intersection details.dgnlib. So I'm going to click the 3D traffic separator nose. It's the only one in that and click OK. It wants a reference element, so I'm just going to pick, you should be able to use the pavement asphalt _ PM lines. So I'm going to pick that. And then it's the same pavement asphalt PM on this side. So I don't like the way this is showing up. Does not look very promising. But the one thing you can do is, cycle through the alternatives. Change, basically you click on these arrows, change the direction of the arrows for each line until it's looking right. But I think it's not going to show correctly because it's probably trying to build it. Yeah, see, it's trying to build it over there. Very problematic. And then it puts it in there. So I'm going to have to do construction lines to build that. I'm not sure why the pavement asphalt PM is not working. The only thing I can say is because it's connected to the corridor, it's basically connected to the other side, and it's getting confused as to where it needs to go, and it's not giving me the option to put it over here. So if I just trace this with a construction line, I could build it off of there, or I can use the it doesn't even have to be construction. It could be another traffic separator, feature definition. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be some line. And then I'm going to project the profile to it. All right, so I'm going to do linear roadway design. I'm just going to use the traffic separator lines. See if I can match the same feature definitions already there. I think it's the, I don't know which one it is. If I hover over this, I can see it's TS Type 1, 4'7". So TS Concrete Type 1, 4 foot wide. So let's change it to Type 1, 4 foot wide. And make sure the use active is set there. And I go to geometry, and I'm just going to trace these lines. So a simple line should be sufficient. For this one, it's straight. This one is on a curve, and the curve, because I didn't station my alignment, I don't know where the curve ends exactly. It may be around here somewhere. Let me just annotate that alignment real quick so I can tell. So come over to drawing production, annotate element, select the center line, reset to complete. All right, so the curve ends right there. So this one is a little bit harder just to trace because it's going to be an arc and a line, but this one is just a line the whole way. So I'm just going to trace this one with geometry, just use the lines between points, and I'm going to just trace the traffic separator line. Really, I should go, I'm just going to go the same direction as the corridor. So I'm going to start it here, and I'm going to end it here. So the line goes that direction. And then run it again for the other side. So that should be 300 feet long. That's a good reference here. So this one's a complex. It's going to be 2 pieces. Really, I don't need it all the way down here. So what I'll do is I'll just do this piece here because I only need it for the end. So I'm going to do this one again, going the same way as the corridor, using the lines. So I'm just going to snap it to this line here and snap it right here. Try to make sure it snaps on the line and not something else. Snap that line and snap that end of it. Okay, so my lines are in there. they don't have any profiles right now. So I need profiles on all of these. So if I go to profile creation, I should be able to just project. I should be able to just do project profile to element. Range would probably be cleaner, but I'm going to just try this since it's quicker. And then the element to project is going to be the pavement asphalt PM, and I'm projecting it onto one of these traffic separator lines, the one that's right on top of it. And then I can verify that it's set up right by opening the profile model for each one. So this is what happens when you use the whole length. It just has extra, but this is probably not an issue because the profile, the 2D is only from here to here. So it should be okay if I make this active. I can look in here, make sure nothing's going to act squirrely. So let me, yeah, so it's already set as active. And it's going to be hard to see because it's stacked on top of the other one. If I rotate the view, I'm going to be able to see it a little bit better. If I turn off the meshes, I can probably see it even better. So if I go to Open Road Standards, expand out feature definition, turn off mesh. Give it a second to reprocess things. Oh, never mind. Habit of doing that, but it's not in this file, so turning off mesh isn't going to affect that. I'd have to turn off the display of the reference. So I can check that. I'm going to just go to level display. And then I'm going to make sure 3D view is active, and then right click and uncheck display. So now I can see that line that I created. It's there, and it's just there. So if I look over here, it's not showing down here because it's only going to show that profile for the length of the 2D. So typically it's not a problem doing that, but that's just to be aware of what it does. It has a lot of extra profile information. And that pavement asphalt PM, remember that issue, it's connected to the other one. So that's why it's showing in two pieces here. But not an issue since the construction line is much shorter and it's separate. So let's just do the same command so we can see that works okay. Let's do the same command for all these others. Geometry, project profile to element. We're going to project pavement asphalt PM, and we're going to project it onto the traffic separator. And if it shows up in the 3D view like that, then you know it's active. So I'll just go into the next one rather than opening a profile model for all of these. Come down here, select the pavement asphalt PM, select the traffic separator one in this file. There's my line. Do the same thing for the other side. Pavement asphalt PM, plane element to project onto, traffic separator. There it is. So there's my construction line. Well, traffic separator lines are, you can have it on a construction element, but in this case I just had the same feature definition. So now I should be able to build that civil cell using those lines instead of the reference. So to make it easier, I'm going to turn off the display in the 2D view of the main line, so I don't need it now because I got these lines to build off of. All right, so I'm going to go back to model detailing, place civil cell, and it's already picked the last one, the 3D traffic separator nose. So I'm just going to leave that and just pick the two reference elements here. And now if I zoom out, see the whole thing, see where it's trying to build things. So click the arrow. See, it's trying to build it over there. That's not going to work. Click the arrow on this side. There, now it's putting it in the right place. So that's good. So it does a little preview of the nose. So that's also why I helped to turn the mainline view off, so because that would overlap, it'd be hard to see. So once you have the right alternative, you see select elements to view alternatives. That's always the left click on selecting. So, click that arrow on either one until you get it the right place. Then reset to skip when you're done, and then accept civil cell. So then I left click again. And if you look here, there's my traffic separator nose in the 3D. And when I turn this 3D back on, you'll probably see it easier. Let me go ahead and do that right now. Display. So you can see it lines up pretty well. Looks good. Now, if you want to get really fancy, we didn't clip the pavement underneath there. If you wanted to get really fancy when we built this line, you could have traced the nose and cut that out rather than just doing straight across. If you want to be more precise, because technically you probably don't have pavement under here. That's just a little bit more effort, but it certainly could have been done. Put an arc in the middle of that and snap to this point instead of going straight across like we did. So I'm going to go ahead and put the nose in on the other side. Let me move the 3D view down here. And then it's still in the same command. So it's just asking for the reference element. So I'm just going to select these two lines as the two reference elements. And this time it happened to get the right one. So it makes a difference what order you select them in usually. If you select them in the right order, it may go to the right place right off the bat. So I'm just gonna reset because it's in the right place, and then accept. And there's my traffic separator nose. It's in there. So you can see a few extra handles in the 2D. So basically, this civil cell has a linear template built into it that runs the traffic separator around this little arc. All right, so it's there. Now we just need the right turn island. We need to build a linear template for this to put in curb. All right, so we're going to go to the model detailing tab. This is exercise 4.11. So model detailing, we go to apply linear template. Wants to locate element to apply template. So you just need to have a profile, which we do for this complex element. So I'm going to select that element. It's going to give me this warning about B-splines. I'm going to set OK on that for now because this is because the way we copied it, I think it made it a B-spline instead of simply an arc. And then I need to pick my template. So I'm going to do the 3 dots here. This one needs to be, we go under components, curb and gutter, curb type E inside. So this one will match the slope if we need it to. Because this is a linear template, it actually isn't going to behave quite the same way. You'd have to have something to make it follow it, but it's okay. We'll just use this one. It's closest. All right, so then I accept the template choice. And then once the start and stop stations, I'm just going to do Alt to lock that both to the start and to the stop to the end. So it's going to wrap all the way around. And then it asks me to pick a side. So it's just going on the inside. So with this linear template, it's a lot like a quarter template, except you can flip it to the other side. You can also have the option to mirror it if you want to double it up. Let's say you have it running along something that's like a center line. You can even have it like do the two halves of a short roadway or two halves of something. So just make sure the orange just select on the inside of this, so the curb is going towards the inside. And then it asks for the exterior corner sweep angle. I'm just going to accept the default on that. You can give it a description if you want. I'll just call it right turn island. And I hit enter, so it went ahead and finished the command. So you can check to make sure it looks okay. And there it is. Looks good. So there would be ways of making this follow the adjacent lane, but it's tricky to set up, so we're not going to do that. Basically, you could do a point control. You'd have to have a template that has a point out there and it follows the slope. Maybe you have a point control to here, or if there's a lane break somewhere. But I'm not going to worry quite about that much level of detail right now. So if I look in here, I can see that curve in there. And you can see it is, actually it is following the slope fairly well, but it's just, so here it's going down. So this is our dip, right? Here it's pretty much level because that little piece there is level. So the only thing we need now is the either sod or concrete in here. So I think for the exercise, it's supposed to be the DTM proposed slope. So for sod, and if you needed concrete, you can just create a terrain the same way and add a surface template on it. So we're going to go to, first of all, so we need to create template geometry for this curb back. So if I hover over it, make sure I get the right. So it's curb_PM. So if I go over here to Explorer, go to Open Road Standards, go to Linear under Feature Definitions, go to Roadway Design, go to Template Points, and right-click on Curb PM, choose Properties. Or if you already have it open, it's fine too. Set this option to create template geometry, set it to true, from false to true. Remember, it's not going to update anything until we reprocess that. So if I come over here to the corridors tab, I can reprocess the corridor. Much the same way you do a corridor, you can reprocess a linear template. A lot of the same commands work, not all of them. So now I see these yellow lines in here. So these are the curb PM that it was created. So again, there's no difference in the 3D because that profile is already there. But now that we see the yellow lines, we know it was created properly. So that's good. And now we can create a terrain from that. So I'm going to go over here to Terrain tab. And I'm going to go to From Elements, like we did before. The feature type would be Boundary. And I'm just going to select this back a curb line here. Curb back in. There's no next element. That's it. I'm going to change this feature definition from DTM clipping to this DTM proposed slopes. Okay, so this is going to actually make it grass. Notice it actually adds some items here because it has the pay item associated with it for performance turf. If your pay items are ready to go, you can go ahead and attach it there. I don't think this is ready to go in this file, so it's fine. I'll just leave it as is. And reset because I'm done with that step. Feature type boundary, accept that. Edge method none. So there we go. It builds it. There's my sod. This is the main difference with the DTM proposed slopes. It has the feature definition associated with it, and the item type for quantities. So that just saves you the trouble of having a zero depth surface template. So we added that also in this latest version of 10.08.02 of F.Connect. And that's pretty much all we're going to cover here. I mean, there's some on your own exercises in the book because so basically you need to clean up this side and clean up some of these other side streets. But this shows you all the tools you need to do that. So if you want to dive into it further, you can. Thank you for joining me today for the CAD Office series for F.Connect. This was the second part of Chapter 4 on detail modeling for the F.Connect Roadway Design 3D Modeling Guide.